Hi everyone, it's Lehman with Lace Covered Skies and Enchanted Paper Cottage over on TikTok. I am here to try out some of these items that I received in the last video from Craspire. They asked me to pick out some items, and if you'd like to see everything that I picked out, please go ahead and check out my last video. But one of the things I chose were a few sets of stencils. Now, I love to coffee dye with stencils, and so far I've had one set that I got a long time ago from Amazon. So when I saw these stencils on Craspire, I really wanted to try them out because I want some newer designs. So I thought it would be good to try it out with you guys. And if you've never seen me do this before, then this can be somewhat of a tutorial as well. So the first thing you're going to have to do is, and I'm not going to show you how to do this in this video, but if you'd like a tutorial on this as well, then let me know in the comments down below. But the first thing you're going to do is you're going to make your coffee. So when I make coffee for coffee dyeing, I use 7 tea bags, and I usually find these tea bags at, I don't know, estate sales, in my cupboards that are expired. Like, these are just black tea bags, like black tea, that you can just, you know, like maybe your friend has a box of teas that's expired. Like, that would be a great way to get that. So that's what I use, and that's why I use 7 bags. And then I have a jar of instant coffee from Dollar Tree. That instant coffee is probably the least expensive I've ever been able to find, because the jar it's pretty small, but it's not too small, and it's only $1.25. So I put at least 2 tablespoonfuls into my pot of water that already has the 7 tea bags brewing. So I make a pretty dark stain, and this time I only made this much coffee dye. It's 4 fluid ounces, so it should be very thick, and we'll see how it turns out with these stencils. Now, the mist or the mister that you use needs to be very fine in order for this to work, because if it's not fine, it's just gonna go through the stencil and it's not gonna create that look that we're after. It's just gonna be like big splotches instead of like a fine misting that's gonna cover the entire stencil and not go underneath and soak through. So a very fine misting spray bottle. I'm just using an old one from my toner that I use on my face. I just rinsed it out, and we're going to be using that for this project. And so we're going to go ahead and try this with these stencils. Now, I also made up a small batch of avocado dye while I made this coffee dye, and we're going to try it as well. It's not as pigmented, so I'm not sure how this is going to work out, but that's going to be the experiment. So I just have regular printer paper here today, and these were the stencils from that last video where I did the unboxing. I think I'm gonna set this aside because I'm gonna use texture paste and texture paste with this stencil right here, and I don't want to mix it with the coffee dye for now anyways. So we're just gonna set that aside. So I have this set of stencils. They are smaller, as well as this set right here. I think I got a single, yeah. I got this stencil as just a single stencil. And this was 99 cents. And the other sets were about $5. If you want more details, again, it's in my last video. And if you're interested in purchasing some of these stencils, I will have a link to Craspire down in the description box, and they have also given me a coupon code for you guys to use. So check all that down in the description box below. But let's get started. So the way I do this is I lay down a piece of whatever paper. It could be any kind of paper. Let's start with these smaller dies. So this is an experiment with these smaller dies to see how I want to do this. I think for this first one, I'm going to use the less detailed pieces and kind of overlap them. And we'll see how that turns out. Although there's going to be borders, but you know what? We're going to try it out. So I have layered 4 stencils on top of each other here, just overlapping to cover the paper. And we are going to go ahead and spray. And lay this over and see the design come through. That's when you see it come through. It's looking really pretty. Now these larger dies, I like the more intricate details, but as you can see, they look beautiful. So that's what I tend to do. I tend to just shy away from things that don't appeal to me at first, but when you experiment, sometimes you can be very pleasantly surprised. All right. I'm just laying them on like that, and let's go for it again. I love when I lay the sheet over and we can kind of see the design peek through. I think these are going to be so pretty. Look at that. It covers the entire page. It looks great. I've only ever experimented with one set of dies, and I've used that set quite a bit. So this is going to be really fun for me. All right, let me get my next page ready. If I had a larger space, I could do more sheets and just lay it out more, like the stencil's not overlapping, but this is fine for this video. Doesn't it look so pretty? Is it showing up on camera? Cannot wait to see how these turn out. So I just laid this sheet over the sprayed stencils, and I'm putting another plain piece in, and I'm gonna lay this in. I'm down to 3 stencils. So let me see how I can spread this out here. Let's put this right there. And let's just lay that like that. These small stencils would be great for pages that you have printed digitals or whatever else onto, or book pages, because the stencil on a page that already has a lot of stuff on it, you don't need to cover the whole page. So this would be really great for that. All right, we're gonna keep on trucking along. This time I am going to use the full sheet. I tend to avoid the areas of the design that I'm not crazy about. I'm not crazy about that design. So I'm just avoiding it a little bit. These are going to be so pretty. And I love having more stencils, because when I do this, I will run through all my stencils and have to pull out the bottom ones. So it's nice that I have more, because then I can just keep on going. This one's going to be so pretty. I think this set right here is my favorite out of all the stencils I have as of right now. They just look so intricate. And I will say that because they're so intricate, they are a little bit more fragile. So that's why coffee dyeing with these stencils is perfect. Because if you were to use texture paste, it might cause the stencil to warp or bend a little bit. So it's perfect for this type of project. This one's going to be a really interesting one as well. And when you're spraying like this, a little bit of coffee dye goes a very long way. It's not like when you're coffee dyeing the whole page, which I do need to do. But when you're brushing over the entire page, it takes up a lot more coffee dye. So this is a great way to coffee dye on a little more of a budget, because I mean, coffee, just like everything else in the market these days, is expensive. And this, you get such a striking result that sometimes it's more what's the word I'm looking for? It's more impressive than just having like a full piece of coffee dyed paper. And it takes less time and coffee. Ever since I learned how to do this, I've definitely shied away from coffee dyeing like in the oven. Although I do need to do a batch this year. I usually do it once a year. It takes me like 2 whole days because I do a lot at once, and I have not run out from the other years, but I still want to make more because hoarding. See, we have this much left, so it barely uses any coffee. In fact, I want it to use more because I want to move on to the avocado dyeing. I live in Southern California, so we are not having nice weather. So I don't want to do too much because it's not going to be warm enough to dry everything. All right. So I'm coming to the end of my stencils here. So, just in case you've never seen me do this before, it's going to be blank piece of paper, stencil, spray, blank piece of paper. And then, so that's, let's say that's this sandwich right here. Then when you start the next batch, it's going to be again blank piece of paper. And then stencil. So you always want 2 blank pieces of paper to be touching each other so that the designs don't bleed into the next page. All right, now I'm wondering what to do now. So I want to move on to the avocado dye, but I still have coffee dye left. I think I'm first going to go ahead and spray the edges. I don't want to lift them too early, but I think they've absorbed enough, and that's the nice part about the fine mist. You don't have to wait too long before lifting them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray the edges here just to, in a sense, ink up the sides, and that's going to look beautiful right there. So I'm tempted to put a piece of paper over that so that it doesn't drip. But I'm going to spray the other edges as well. Because I don't want stark white edges. Let's go ahead and do this side over here. Those drips are going to be beautiful. I think what I'm going to do though is put this piece over to absorb those drips. And I'm going to start pulling the stencils out, but before I do that, let me just use a bag to hold all of this. Let me fix my microphone really quick. And I like to use one of these grocery bags and I cut it up so that it's a very wide piece. So I'm opening up the bottom right here and going in here and just opening up one side so that I get a big sheet of plastic. That way we can just lay all the coffee dyed papers on here. And this is where I will let them dry. All right. So let me move this out of frame. And it has contained everything pretty nicely. So I'm not going to have too much of a mess on my hands. But let me just go ahead and wipe this a little bit. We're going to try a couple pieces with the avocado dye. Probably won't go through the whole set, but we're going to experiment and see what happens. Alright. But before I do that, I'm going to be removing the stencils so you can see the result. And of course, I will be coming back in the next video to show you the final dried result. But here we can see preliminarily what has happened. So that was just the sheet that was on top. And actually, I think I'm going to turn it over this way so that it can get stained on that side as well. Okay, so this was that top sheet. Looks so pretty. And that was with this stencil right here. I did make my coffee dye extremely pigmented this time, so that's why the result is so nice. Okay, I'm having some issues here. So this is the negative, you know, like the negative, it shows up really nice. This is the positive impression, and it's showing up pretty nice too. Usually, I only have one set that's, nicer than the other, but these look like they're both showing up really well. And it could be a combination of these dyes, these stencils, but also the pigmentation of my coffee dye. So, see, like usually this side wouldn't be as good, but it's showing up really nicely, and this side is as well. I think I'm just going to spray the edges a tiny bit, because I want them to be coffee dyed. I'm being kind of careful because I don't want to tear these wet papers. Wow. I am really happy with how these are looking so far. Cannot wait to see how they look all dried up. So beautiful. And like I said, I really like this big set right here. It's turning out very nice. See, even though this kind of bled in the whole thing, you can still see the definition. And I don't know if that's because the stencils are so extremely detailed. I love that both sets, like the positive and the negative, are turning out clear. I love that little area down there. Almost looks like a necklace or chains or something. This here is so detailed. Look at that. I love that. So this is that single one that I bought. And then now, that's the positive side. It looks so pretty. Now we're going to get into the smaller dies. Let's see how those turned out. Very pigmented, or very clear as well. From now on, when I do stencil dyeing, I'm going to make the dye very pigmented like this, because I'm really enjoying this. I'm not a big fan of the way it's overlapping. So if I ever do this in a wider area, I would spread things out more. But I really love how defined everything is. We're going to quickly experiment with the avocado dye, but I don't have very high hopes because it's not that pigmented. But we'll see how it looks. Maybe the subtlety will be an unexpected surprise. We'll see. Okay. That one's nice. I really love the stencils that are just full to the edge. And our last page right here. There we have it. Now I am just gonna lay this over top, and we are gonna try some of the avocado dye. But I'm gonna need to figure out where to put my leftover coffee dye here. I have this small cup here, but I don't. Oh yeah, there's not that much coffee dye, so we can go ahead and pour it into here. Now let me just lay this in between some of the papers so it can absorb some of that. You guys can see it looks like mud. So when I made this, I made it very pigmented. So if you want to take a look at that, let me put this somewhere where I'm not going to spill it. I'm trying to decide, because if I put the avocado dye straight in here, it's going to be extremely pigmented from the coffee dye. Which, I mean, I just don't want to do that because I want to test. I want to test out the avocado dye on its own. I have some water right here, so I think I'm just gonna kind of rinse it out, not rinse it out all the way. Okay, I'm just gonna pour it over my little tray over here off camera. We are at 31 minutes. Okay, let me, and then I have these bowls here. See, it's still pretty dark. So I'm just going to try to get rid of some of this. I use these bowls for holding small bits of paper, so that was kind of handy that it was right here. Gonna rinse this out again. I feel like I'm doing a cooking show right now. All right. Okay. Now we can pour the avocado dye in and see how that's gonna turn out. Can you guys see what I'm doing? I mean, you don't necessarily need to see me rinsing, but let's put this in view so you can see me do this part. All right, now I am going to move this aside and put the tray back in, and we're going to do a few. All right, so I am going to put down a blank piece and then a stencil and then the avocado dye. So moment of truth here. Oh, it's so light. I can see a tinge of pink, but compared to the coffee dye, I mean, obviously it's going to be extremely light, but let's see. Now, I have done avocado dye that's a lot darker than this, so but I think this might be nice. It's a lot more subtle, but it's definitely giving off the design. It might be very subtle, which is nice. It's nice to have something that's a little bit different. So let me pull out these stencils. I'm only going to use the larger stencils. So we can see now when you stencil coffee dye and there's too much water, it doesn't turn out great. So how much I'm spraying right now is a little more than I normally would, but I want this to show up, and I also want to use up my dye. I don't want to have any leftovers. So I am spraying a little more than I normally would. I don't know if you guys can see that pink there. It's actually pretty pigmented for a light color. I think I like avocado dyeing better than coffee dyeing, just because when I avocado dye, I usually just dry it in the sun for whatever reason, so it doesn't take a lot of time. And if you're eating avocados anyways, it's extremely more cost effective than coffee dye or tea dye. The pink is very pretty. That's another reason why I love avocado dyeing. I used the skin from a small avocado, like the teeny tiny avocados from Trader Joe's. I just used the skin of one avocado. I freeze them whenever I eat avocados. I freeze them, and then I just take them out of the freezer to boil them. I need to do a session of avocado dyeing as well. I've avocado dyed lots of eyelet and fabric. That turns out nice too. See that pink? It's almost like a nude taupe in a way, like blushes, shades of blush colors. In the next video, I will show you guys the results, and we can compare avocado stencil dyeing versus coffee dyeing. Now, I don't think the result is going to be as good for the positive and negative side of these. important to just press it down so that it absorbs, just absorbs in that one spot and it's not moving around. One more. My hand is getting tired. Spraying. It's like spray fatigue. All right, I think what I'm gonna do with the rest of this right now is I'm just gonna spray a stack of papers that I have right here. I mean, might as well. Let's spray these index cards. Let's just gonna get a nice little stack here, and we can just kind of use up the rest of this avocado dye. I don't like to do too much at once when the weather's not hot, because I don't want it to sit there too long without getting dry. I mean, yeah, without getting dry. All right, so let's go ahead and you know what? I think what I'm gonna do is use this bowl. I'm just gonna get rid of this right here. And I am going to, I think I'm just going to pour this in, and then we can just dye the edges of it. So let me go ahead and do this. So that's the color of the avocado dye right there. And I'm going to pour this back in here and save it and hopefully not make a mess. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. I don't like to save it too long because I don't know how long it's going to stay good for, even if I do leave it in the fridge. But let me go ahead and, you know what, let's make some interesting designs on this page. What I tend to do is I'll kind of just wipe things like this, and then when I do my coffee dyeing, I will do more. Like I'll kind of clean things off like this, and then later when I do coffee dye, like the traditional coffee dyeing, I will take these pages out and then re-coffee dye them. But I'm gonna lift all of this out. Actually, let's leave this in. Let's leave this in here. I'm gonna lift that out and put it with the others, and we're gonna set this down in here and just do this. And sometimes it'll absorb it and climb up the page, but I like doing this because then it's kind of organic, the way things start to look as you submerge it in. And then let's go ahead and do this side. This is very quick. This is why I like avocado dyeing too. It's just very quick, and it is subtle, but it does leave its mark. So then I'm just going to let it sit there for a little bit and let it do whatever it decides to do. But in the next video, we are going to be working with some of these papers and making tags and using texture paste with this dye right here, and just kind of experimenting with the coffee dye and avocado dye papers that we made today. And you're going to see the result for everything I did today, all dried up, and we can compare the coffee dye versus the avocado dye as well. So if you have any questions about any of these products, let me know in a comment down below. Also, if you're interested in any of these stencils, go ahead and check the link down below, and I have left a coupon code down there for you guys too. And if you want to see everything that I got in this unboxing, you can go ahead and check out my last video. But thank you so much for watching today, and I will talk to you next time. Bye everyone.